When you meet another builder, even though you and I are, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 miles apart, how far is it from Texas to Australia? We have a unique perspective on each other's lives. What it's like to be married as a builder, what it's like to be a dad as a builder, what it's like to have people that rely on that paycheck that you're bringing in because you have to get out there and sell jobs. So we
Mate,
have a unique bond in our industry.
g'day everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We have an absolutely cracking episode for you today. I've actually been up most of the night, pretty nervous about this one, and I've actually sat down and made a couple of pages of notes because um, our guest today is absolutely amazing. He's pretty much been running his own race for over 10 years now. He's been a huge inspiration for me that entire time. He's actually a big reason why I started putting myself out there and doing everything I'm doing. He's leading the way in building science and healthy homes, loves high performance construction, has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, hundreds of thousands of followers on his social media. Massive warm welcome from Austin, Texas. We've got Matt Risinger from Risinger Build. How are you, mate?
Man, I'm coming to you from the past, Duayne. I know you're already in tomorrow, and I'm still in today. I feel so behind the times. You cool Aussies always on tomorrow's time.
Well, mate, I'd like to think we are ahead of times, but when it comes to building, we've got a long way to go. That's part of this whole podcast. Everything I'm doing is to really level up the industry and performance, healthy homes, um, building. Like I really want builders delivering clients better products, like what clients deserve to be getting. And
Amen.
um, I really love you do a very similar process, I think, Matt, to what we do. So we've developed what we call it our pack process, pay as a consultant. So we basically do an agreement, a scope of works, and we get involved with our clients right from before they've even engaged, generally architects, designers, and we build a team and we collaborate. And I know you do a similar process, and you get in front of the clients, you work as a team, and you can really put your knowledge forward. And it's not just about all just bidding and trying to be the lowest price. It's about
That's
delivering the
great.
client value.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We call it a pre-construction agreement. I don't know if you guys are calling it that in Australia, but we put we usually have one free meeting, or not even free. We have one meeting that's a get to know you meeting, and then we'll give them a free high level budget to make sure that they kind of have a general sense of where we expect budgeting to go on their project. And sometimes that's just based on their square footage if they have no architecture. But after that, then we say, look, we'd love to be involved. Here's our 3 page, I always call it my dating contract. And we require a deposit of, depending on depending on kind of what we think the scope's going to be, 10 to 20,000 dollars, and then we bill
Yeah.
hourly for our estimator's time. So it sounds like we're doing a real similar uh, kind of pre-construction to you guys.
Yeah.
And Duayne, I got to tell you, I mean, what you're doing here on your podcast, what I do, I always feel like there's a ton of other builders, remodelers, contractors doing the same thing, and a rising tide floats all boats. And what you're doing is educating and encouraging people to build better. And a new phrase that we've kind of coined around the build show is "know better, build better." And there's lots of men and women like you and I that have high integrity and want to do it right, but we just maybe don't know that there is a better way to build. And so by putting yourself out there, talking about your methods, talking about healthy houses, talking about high performance houses, people get it. And also the general public, I bet, is listening to your podcast more than you know too, because they want to be educated when they talk to builders. So what we're doing together is bringing the industry standards up.
100%, Matt. And I think, like for me, it's you just touched on it then, like working together, putting yourself out there. Like none of us know everything, and it's having that collaboration and those conversations and talking to people. But I think where that early pre-construction process, whichever way you're doing it, adds so much value, not just
Mhm.
to our businesses and to the industry, but to clients, is a lot of clients actually don't know. Like unless you're putting yourself out there or you're making suggestions or you're getting an understanding of the type of person they are and the type of home they want to build, and like even just asking that question, do you want a sustainable home or do you want a high performance home, gives everybody an opportunity to put things on the table. And then for us, our big thing is that we really put a lot of time into educating the client so that they can tell us what they see value in.
Totally. Totally. That's huge. That's absolutely
The
huge.
And because when like if the client starts to understand more about a healthy home or a more high performance home, like a lot of the time we find anyway, like they'll scale back the overall size of the home so that they can afford a better home. Is that what you find over there?
Boy, does 100%. 100%. Not everybody, right? Not everybody is our client though, too. And not everybody
Yeah.
fits in our ethos and um our similar desire to build houses that are going to last. Some people have a very short-term thinkers, and those end up not being great clients or great fits for us. And
Yeah.
luckily, it sounds like you're in a good market, and so am I, where we can be a little selective and picky, and not just go after every job. And plenty of meetings that I've been in the last 6 months, I've said something to the effect of, I just don't think that we're the right fit for you as a builder. I'm going to give you a
That,
recommendation to a friend of mine who I think might be a better fit, but from what you're telling me, I don't think that we're gonna be the best match for you for what
that
you're looking for.
that's really powerful, isn't it? Like being in a position where you have the confidence to say you're not the client for me. Like that's massive for your business, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd like to
Um,
say we always say that real up front, but sometimes we also say, gosh, I would love to work on this. We've got a 2-year wait list. So if you're willing to give us a deposit, we'd love to give you a call in 2 years when we free up. And those are the people I really don't want to work with, but I don't want to say we don't want to work with you. I had one of those not too long ago that if you want to hear the story, I'll tell you the longer version of it. But
yeah, yeah.
that's that's the polite version.
Mate, tell us the story because I think this is important. Like, I really put this out there to builders. Like, you need to have a strategy to walk away from the clients that you don't, for whatever reason, don't fit with your business model. Because
Yeah,
if your guts is telling you that they're not the right person, all it's going to do is cause a lot of time, heartache, wasted money, and you could have been putting that energy into a client that does want to work with you or does
that's
appreciate
right.
what you're bringing to the table.
That's right. So
That's
here's the fast story. I was at my office one day after hours. It was 5:30. Everyone was gone, and the phone rang, and I saw the caller ID, and I was like, huh, that's not. I don't recognize that number. It didn't seem like it was a sales call. It felt like it was an individual calling. I thought, oh, I should grab this. So I field the call, and turns out it's a prospect calling the office about a build, and we have like a 10 question protocol that whoever answers the phone, like, go through these questions with the prospect. How far along in the process are you? Do you have a piece of dirt already? Have you already gauged an architect? Do you have any idea of what budget range you're looking in? Uh, all these questions that kind of anyone who answers the phone can get some basic information. And then if it's, let's say if it's my accounting team that answers the phone, they can pass it on to me or one of my business partners to, field a real sales call. So I get this call. I'm going through the questions with this guy. And I'm like, wow, this is a terrific prospect. Like, he has a really good budget. He seems to really care about well-built construction. Uh, like, he's saying all the right stuff. And I was like, this is great. And he's already kind of down the road with an architect that I knew and liked. So I'm thinking this is terrific. I can't believe I answered the phone. What a win. And then towards the end of the call, he says something like, "Yeah, I don't think I can get together with you next week. After all, I forgot. I got to be in my other town where we're moving from because we're finishing up some things with this other builder." I was like, "Oh, have you built before? What's the story?" Well, he goes on to tell me he's suing his builder in this new home that he finished not too long ago, and he's got to finish up the lawsuit and take care of some things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I can't believe number one, I'm surprised he told me. And number two,
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to dig in a little more here. So I dig in a little more. It turns out his wife is an attorney, and the wife specializes in suing contractors in her firm. And turns out he's got some he, I don't want to get into the story in case they're listening,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine you know who they are. But long story short, I get into kind of the specifics of why he's suing the builder. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so thankful this guy was willing to tell me this. And that's when I went into yeah, it sounds like a great project. We're booked out till 2027. But I'd love to get you our contract and take a deposit from you. And then as we free up, as we get closer in 2026, we'd love to call you. He's like, oh, that's not gonna work. We gotta move forward sooner than that. I was like, oh, shucks. That's too bad. I'll be sure to
Yeah,
not recommend any other builders to you.
yeah.
Like, who's my worst enemy? I'll recommend him, right? Like,
Yeah.
who would you want to possibly refer to somebody who's in process from suing his current contractor? It
Oh,
was just
you
one of those phone calls. Where you're like, wow, I'm so thankful I got the real story from this person. So I bet every
yeah.
contractor has some story like that where they found out at some point in the process that, wow, this person would have been incredibly difficult to work with. I'm so thankful I dodged that bullet.
100%, mate. But I'm sure there's contractors out there would look at it the other way and think, oh, they're an attorney, they earn lots of money, they'll have lots of money to spend on a house. This will be a great job. But anyway, um, mate, I'm really keen to dig deeper into all this high performance stuff with you, and I'm keen to know more. Like you use building science, like on your website, like that's one of your calling cards. Like, tell me a bit more about building science.
For me, funny enough, we're talking about a builder that got sued here, or a client who was suing a builder. For me, it all started in early 2000. I was working for another builder. This is before I started my company. And in America in 2002, 2003, we had two big builder lawsuits happening on a national basis. We had this thing called EIFS, Exterior Insulating Finishing Systems. I don't know if you guys had it down there in Australia, but it was like lick and stick fake stucco, where you would take a wood framed house and you would take a 4x8 sheet of EPS foam. You'd put a mastic on it with a notch trowel and you'd stick it right on the building. So you'd have this exterior insulation. And then the finishing system was a fake stucco. It was basically a 5 gallon bucket that had a mixture between caulking and paint. And so you'd stick this insulation board on, and then you'd trowel on this synthetic stucco. And when you were all done, it was about half the cost of traditional stucco. But it looked like stucco, and oh, by the way, it's got an R value of, let's say, 3 to 5, depending on how thick the foam was. The problem with the system was it wasn't a water managed system; it was a face sealed system, meaning everything that penetrated that foam had to be caulked perfectly. Your windows had to be caulked perfectly. There was no sill pans under windows and doors. Plumbing penetrations had to be caulked, vents, everything had to be caulked perfectly. And as you might imagine, water would get in and would have nowhere to go.
Mm.
And one of my favorite phrases I use all the time from this building science guy I follow, David Nicastro, he says, if it can't dry, it's going to die. And that's exactly what happened
Yeah.
with these houses. Even houses at the time we were framing with real plywood, not even OSB. Water would get behind this fake stucco and it would have nowhere to drain or dry. It would just wet the plywood. And over time, uh, even a year later, that plywood would turn into mush. And so I was this young 30-year-old builder working for a production builder, going through several lawsuits, ripping houses apart and fixing them. And for me, it was like the sky was falling. Like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like, I didn't know that these houses I'd been building for years were going to be huge failures. And at the same time, we were also getting sued for mold claims from builders or from homeowners because at the time, insurance companies were did not have the current exclusion for mold in your homeowner's insurance policy. And so I was in 2002, I probably had 10 lawsuits I was juggling from this other builder I was working for. So it was just a really galvanizing time in my life, Duayne, where I said, okay, I really need to dig into building science here and figure out what the problem is. Why are these houses having issues? And the biggest reason I cared about it was I wanted to understand and prevent building failures, not so much saving BTUs or building efficient houses, but just frankly houses that weren't going to fall apart and have problems.
Mate, I think it's something that's so important. it's something that we're really sort of starting to get into in Australia now, and dealing with all the mold and the condensation. Like we've got some big regulation changes that are coming in the next couple of months, and it sounds very similar to that. Like what's happened in Australia, like they've tried to bring in all these codes over the last sort of 8 to 10 years with insulation and giving homes higher R values. But what they've done is they've filled up the cavities, and now condensation's happening, and there's mold growth in the insulation and all this type of stuff because there's nowhere for the building to breathe. Windows have
Yep,
become a lot more airtight, all those types of things. And I think it's something that every contractor, every builder in the world really needs to take more seriously, because as our products improve, we need to adapt our building practices to make sure that we're still delivering quality. Well, I've changed my word from quality. I like the word healthy homes now. Like we've got to be delivering our clients a healthy environment.
that's right. 100%. I totally agree. And it's also interesting that Australia is a pretty similar construction type to America. You guys, from what I can tell on Instagram, anyways, you guys are pretty wood framed like we are. You have
Yeah,
good timber industries, good growth in your forests, and so it's also interesting as you think about kind of a world perspective. Just south of me in Mexico and the Caribbean, they don't build at all with wood. They build with cinder block mainly. And when you go to Europe, they don't build with wood except for in wood heavy countries like Germany and Switzerland, where they love their Swiss wood in Switzerland.
yeah, yeah,
But Germany's a mix of some timber frame and some other types of block, cementitious block construction. So it's interesting to see depending on where you are. And of course, if you're building a house out of concrete, we're not as worried about water because there's not as big of a deal with degradation if your concrete foundation gets wet. Now your drywall behind that could be a problem, but the foundation's not, or the concrete itself is not going to degrade or grow mold. So it's interesting that Australia and America are actually very similar in our building types.
yeah. So I've recently in the last 12 months done my passive home course and sort of starting to venture into that, look a bit more into that. Like I know I've seen some of your videos and the lengths you go to with the glues and sealing the bottom plates and all those types of things. Like, do you only build high performance homes, or do you cater for the each individual client?
I would say that I bring the best performance I can to the style of construction and not as much budget, but more like the architect's direction. And in the past, my company has really been very hyper focused on being an architect's builder, meaning, we'll take your vision and build it to the highest degree possible, but always with a focus on durability first and then less a focus on, let's say, general high performance after that. That takes a backseat to aesthetics, let's say, or to the architect's vision for the house. And in the last 1 to 2 years, we've really moved to having more and more clients coming to us first before the architect. And when that happens, then we tend to be able to control the process a little bit more. And just a month ago, I hired my first full-time architect on my staff, and we're hoping to move towards more design build and less architects builder. Not that we dislike architects, we still have a couple really cool projects going, and we probably always will with some architects. But we want to move towards doing more passive house. We want to do more buildings that are really more modest budgets and not more, kind of not unlimited budgets, but like I have a $10 million house that we're going to be starting pretty soon. My biggest project ever. Hopefully, it'll come to pass. Super
Yeah,
super cool and an awesome project. It'll be super fun. But as I make videos and tell people how to build, uh, there's only so much I can do in a $10 million house to show people the right process. Now, there's lots of craftsmanship and there's smaller projects that you can get from that you might do in your house. But on the other hand, I've got a build coming up with $1 million budget, and we've designed it in conjunction with Steve Basic, who's an architect on my network, and it's a very kind of ordinary sized family home that we're not actually building to passive house standards. We're building it kind of a notch lower, And I want it to be a model for how builders across the country could build a really well built house. And I've been working on a building standard of our own that would be like a build show standard that I've already gotten a trademark on the name, so I don't want to say it yet. But uh, like a set of standards that would be like, look, not everyone needs to build to passive house. And it's a little like, have you heard of the pretty good house standard that's in America?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
couple architects came up with that, and I think the name is terrible because who wants to build a pretty good house?
Pretty. Yeah, yeah.
I don't like that name, even though I think the people that came up with it are awesome and I love them. But I've been thinking about more of a standard that's like, look, I want to build it to at least 50% better than code in all areas, whether that's strength, whether that's durability, whether that's longevity, whether that's bug resistance, whether that's the health of the home or the indoor air quality. But I don't quite want to do it to passive house. I want to do it to some levels that are a little more modest on the kind of lift. So that's the standard I've been kind of working on, and I kind of do that already, and I know a lot of contractors do. Like they have their own mental standard that they won't go below this standard no matter what the budget is or no matter who the client is or whatever.
Mate, I
So
think
I'm just trying to codify that.
that's music to my ears, mate. Like we're pretty much doing a very similar thing at the moment. Like I like doing like I put. I'm a big fan now. I try and really preach it. Like you've got to put time, money, and energy into yourself. You've got to learn. Like you can't make decisions or educate people if you're not educating yourself. So
That's right.
like we're working closely with an architect at the moment to do very similar to what you are, like develop our own standard. Like it's not going to be high
I love
performance.
it.
Um, and that standard will be like we'll educate all of our trades, educate all of our employees, we'll educate our clients. Um, and for me, and I see like you've done it incredibly well. Like when you set your own standards, like and you put it out there, like you're all over the place, YouTube or your social media, I'm sure you're the same. Like you're attracting people that are coming to you because they want what you're going to deliver. And when you can build a brand and you can build standards like that that people relate to, a lot of the times cost doesn't get it's not the most important driver.
That's right.
The quality or the problems you're going to solve or the home that you're going to deliver becomes a priority. I think so many people get well, in Australia anyway, like we see it, our industry is so driven by people trying to get the biggest house they can for the lowest possible price. And
Mhm.
all that's doing is really lowering the standard, lowering the quality. The materials that are coming into the market are terrible. So yeah, all this educating and the more builders like it's unreal. I love on Instagram how many builders now are really putting themselves out there and doing little videos explaining why they're doing things and how they're doing things and the types of materials they're going to be using because like you said, rising tide floats all boats.
That's right. No better, build better. I totally agree. That's great to
Yeah,
see, and just coincidentally from America, I see that my builder friends see that, and I think there's a lot of American builders that want to come to Australia because we see that there are some really good builders like you guys that are doing things to a really high standard, and also doing some really cool architecture, frankly. So I need to make it
yeah.
down to Australia someday, Duane. When you need to give me a tour of some of your jobs.
Mate, I'll take you for sure. I'll take you around the country, mate. We know some incredible builders. The mate, so were you trying to build such a big brand when you started doing what you're doing? Like, what was driving you to start doing? Like, because years ago, I remember your very early videos. Like a lot of your earlier ones were not so much about the quality or the performance of the home. Like they were about running a good business and understanding your profits and those types of things. So, um,
Yeah, yeah.
like,
No,
was your
I got on YouTube early, so I've been doing videos since 2008. But I went to this in 2006, right after I started my company. I went to this custom builders symposium that was in California. They don't have that show anymore, but they used to for years. And I heard this speaker talk about marketing, and this guy, David Meerman Scott, had a great like 2 hour set of marketing specifically for builders. And at the time, he said, print advertising is dead. don't waste your money doing an ad for D Pierce Construction in the Brisbane Times. That's wasted money. What you need to do is start a blog, is what he said in 2006. And so I started writing a blog post like twice a month. I called myself Matt Reisinger in the Green Building blog. And it was on blogger.com or Blogspot, which eventually got acquired by Google. And I very early on, after I'd only been doing it for a few months, I went to a prospect meeting with a potential client. And when I introduced myself to the client, they like shook my hand vigorously and were like, "Oh my gosh, Matt, it's so great to finally meet you." And I was like, "What? Like, do you know my family? Or like, how do I know? I don't recognize you. Your name's not familiar." And come to find out, well, he knew I got recommended from someone. So he Googled my name and then he found my blog because that was in the top results on my name. And he read 6 or 8 of my blog posts. And before he even met me, he decided that I was smart and that he liked me. And he didn't even know what I look like. There was no video at this point, it was just written.
Yeah.
So then, like a year later, someone gave me a flip video camera. I have it right here still. It's my original OG flip video camera.
Oh, look at
And you would shoot a video and you'd plug in the USB and you'd upload it to this website called YouTube.
that.
And so I put my first video up in '08, and the same thing happened like 6 months later. I had, let's say, 10 videos on YouTube, and my videos are getting like, maybe 50 views a video at this point in my career. And I meet someone and they're like, this time they were like, "Oh, Matt, oh man, you look great. So good to meet you." Blah blah blah. And I was like, "Well, how do you know me? Do you know my family? Are you like a high school friend of my wife's or something? Like, I'm not from here. How do you know me?" And sure enough, he watched several of my videos. And
Yeah.
just like I'd never met you before today, right? And after 30 minutes on a phone call with you, "Oh, Duayne's awesome. I'd love to go to Australia with Duayne. I've decided I like you." And that's what he did too after watching 5 or 6 videos. And so it was just enough encouragement for me to go, I should keep this up, right? And I would say the same thing to your audience who's listening. Duayne, you've got a podcast and you've got lots of listeners, and you've got several thousand Instagram followers. But wouldn't you say that Instagram was just as valuable for you when you had 250 followers on Instagram? Because if one of them was a homeowner who was thinking about hiring your construction company, they go to there, they see your work, and it's not just pretty pictures, but sometimes it's your face, and sometimes you're talking about why you're doing things. They make a decision whether they like you and whether you'd be a good person to do business with. And so for me, that was my encouragement to keep going. If I got a video that had 100 views, I'd be like, "You won't believe it, honey. This video I made has 100 views. It's crazy." And it was just
It's
as valuable for my business back then as it is today.
it's incredibly powerful, isn't it? Like I'm a big fan. Like I say, it's not about the numbers, like you just said. Like we don't have huge numbers on our socials and YouTube and things, but it's very similar to you. Like and the clicker for me was probably 4 or 5 years ago now. Very similar story. I turned up to the client had made it through an inquiry process. They'd made it to me having a one-on-one meeting with them to go to the next step. And I turned up to the meeting, like, had my iPad. This is my dream projects folder, like, starting to do my standard spiel. And the guy's basically put his arm around me and give me a big handshake. He's like, "Duayne, it's fine, mate. We've been following you for a couple of years. We love your work. Like, let's just work together."
How about that,
And
man? That is so awesome, isn't it?
I think the
I mean,
like, I think there's a with Instagram, I think it can be very misleading. People that are just posting the finished photos and all the pretty stuff. Like I'm a huge fan of like putting out the video, showing people the process and what the team's doing on site and how they're doing it and why they're doing it and the products we're using, all that stuff. Because exactly
yep,
like you just said, like you're building trust with a client before you've even put time into it, and you can build trust with hundreds of people with one video rather than having to meet
that's right.
hundreds of people and say the same thing 100 times.
100%. Totally true.
Yeah,
Totally
but mate,
true. So that's why I kept doing it. And now it's turned into its own business for me, which is great. But no, to answer your original question, that was a really long-winded answer. No, I had no idea we'd get to this point where My website now gets more views than my YouTube channel does. We get like 4 million views a month on our website, and we get
Oh,
around four on our YouTube channel a month.
far
And
out.
now we've got 15 other contributors to Build Show Network. We're about to onboard two more. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, mate, sing out if you ever want an Aussie on there. I'll happily help you out. The
Man,
mate, what?
I'd love to get the Down Under show. Maybe someday. That'd be sure fun.
Yeah, for sure, mate, for sure. The so like, mate, how do you do everything? Like you've obviously built a very successful construction company, and now you've got the
Thank
build
you.
show, like all these other things going on. Like, how do you manage all your time? Like, you obviously have a big team.
Yeah, I have a good sized team, and I brought on business partners too, which makes all the difference. So I have a 50-50 partner in Reisinger Build, my construction company. Tim Hill is my business partner. He's been a builder for 40 years, amazing guy in the industry, super well known in Austin. And we've got almost the same size team in our construction side, our video side. We have 17 people in each company.
Yeah,
And so Tim manages the building company for me, and I probably only put in 6 or 8 hours a week on the building company. And then the other 32 or so I spend in the video production company. And we also have a pretty good sized management team there as well. So I just, having people and delegating is how everybody does it, right?
yeah. It's fantastic. I think it's brilliant. But like, it must you must be incredibly proud of what you've created with the build show and the YouTube channel and everything you're doing now. Because like I see on some of your stuff now, like people are approaching you. Like there's people developing better products because of what you've put out there.
Man, I love it. That's so fun. That's so fun. It's cool. I also love the fact that the build logo doesn't have my name on it. I think builders from even Australia enjoy the build show, and the build show brand isn't Matt Reisinger. It's like-minded builders that care about building a good product that really are interested in doing a little bit better on each build. And ultimately, that logo of "Know Better, Build Better," I think, is what really cuts across even nationalities, let alone political parties or religious faiths, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a believer in Jesus, and yet I have lots of Jewish and atheist friends that have a similar building ethos to me. And I don't care if you're an American and you vote Republican or Democrat, you still have a lot of things in common with that build logo. We want to build things to the best of our abilities. We know that we don't know everything, that we're still students, no matter what phase in our career we're at. And, we want to build healthy, durable houses that are going to be around for generations to come. And I think that cuts across nationalities too. I mean, builders in Australia have a lot in common with builders in Germany and Switzerland. And I have a Instagram friend in South Korea that built some great houses in Korea and Japan. Isn't that cool that we're so well
That's
connected in this builder community? And I think also, lastly, I'm talking too much here, Duayne, but I think builders also have a unique perspective and a unique set of stressors that people in other industries don't quite understand. And so, when you meet another builder, even though you and I are, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 miles apart, how far is it from Texas to Australia? We have a unique perspective on each other's lives. What it's like to be married as a builder, what it's like to be a dad as a builder, what it's like to have people that rely on that paycheck that you're bringing
mm,
in because you have to get out there and sell jobs. So we
mate.
have a unique bond in our industry.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I like it's part of why this Level Up podcast exists. Like we want to connect with other like-minded people. We want to educate the industry. We want to lift the level of the way people operate. Like, did you get to a point with your building business, Matt, where you did you get any coaching or mentoring? Like, because like your building business is pretty substantial as well, isn't it? Like you're building obviously multi-million dollar homes. Like it takes
It's not
a lot.
huge. We do 12 million a year in annual revenue. The last couple of years we've been right at that 12. So we do about a million a month in construction. And it's usually something between five and maybe 7 or 8 jobs under construction at any one time. So, if we have 5 jobs under construction, that means we're trying to push $200,000 worth of work through those jobs every month. But what I did was early on in my career, Dwayne, I found some mentors that were about 15 years older than me. And Tim, my business partner, now was one of my mentors back then when he owned his own company. And when things got slow in the recession, I was able to hire him as a project manager because he
Yeah.
just finished a $20 million job and everything going. And then a few years ago, we partnered up. But that's what I did was I looked for some older builders through my home builders association. And there's three guys in particular that I locked onto and bought them lunch on a regular basis and always sought them out at builder meetings. This is before social media too, for that matter. And those guys just
Collaborations.
acted like I was their little brother.
Collaboration's huge, mate. I'm really pleased with this has come into the conversation. Like, I'm a huge fan of builders, like just reaching out, talking to each other, asking questions. Like, we're all, as you said, it can be right around the world, but we're all dealing with similar situations and clients
Yep.
and architects, designers, trying to lift the level of the building code and all that sort of thing. So, do you like I'd like to just jump onto the building code before we wrap it up, but like,
Yeah,
is it like I get so inspired by it and pumped by it, like to think that by doing these videos and putting this sort of stuff out there, that you're actually lifting the game of the entire industry. Like, even though America and Australia's got a bar that national construction codes, to think that there's all these builders collaborating and talking to each other and working with suppliers and actually creating our own codes, it just excites me so much.
for sure. I think most of my friends on Instagram and the people that I follow on social media, they build much higher than the IRC, International Residential Code, that we go by dictates. And so, the IRC really is a minimum standard for us, and it tends to end up being more of a standard for fireproofing or for fire blocking or life safety health, but it's not really our standard when it comes to airtightness, when it comes to insulation levels, when it comes to healthy buildings. I mean, if you look at the codes, there's no requirements for flashing. There's no requirements for making sure your windows don't leak or putting sill pans in. And yet, that's really, when it comes to a healthy house, a dry house is the most important thing you can
Yeah,
do for your clients. So, when it comes to durability, water is the number one enemy of buildings. And oh, by the way, water's 80% of construction defect litigation. So if I can
yeah,
manage water really well as a builder, I can manage my own, I can manage the lawyers well by keeping them off my back. And I can also manage the health of the house really well as well if I take water really seriously. Sometimes that's water from the sky. Sometimes that's water from your shower, which makes your bathroom into a more rainfall annually than the tropical rainforest, right? So we need to take water in all its forms really, really seriously. And sometimes that's also going to the extra mile to make sure that if an accident happens with water, that you're not going to have a problem. So, when I built my
yeah,
house under construction, I put big overhangs, I put gutters, and then I put awnings in all my first floor windows. And then when I put my dishwasher in, I put an overflow pan underneath my dishwasher. I put an overflow pan underneath my washing machine. Where my water heater was located, I also put a drain pan with a P-trap so that if I ever had a failure catastrophically from any one of those, I wouldn't have a flood like you would in most normal houses. I put floor drains in my kids' bathrooms. So if they're an idiot and overflow the shower or the toilet, it won't rain down on my kitchen ceiling. It'll go down the drain and they'll be able to come get me, and it'll be a mop issue, not
yeah,
a homeowner's claim issue, not an insurance issue.
yeah.
That's the
And
kind of stuff that I think a lot of builders are doing this beyond code.
well, it's all about, it's really just mitigating our risk, isn't it? Like, it's putting a bit of effort in so that we mitigate having those issues in the future. And something that I think gets very overlooked is like all the condensation and stuff as well. But like, when you get moisture in your home, if you haven't got, if you haven't done something to mitigate the outcome from that leak, it soaks into timber, it soaks into the concrete, and you end up with moisture. It might look dry on the surface, but it's actually there long term and can cause mold and all sorts of other things if it's not dealt with correctly. So
That's
it's
right.
an ongoing thing. But mate, I think we might have to organise another one day because I could talk to you for hours. But mate,
Or I
Absolutely.
need to come do it in your studio next time is what I need to do, Duane.
Yeah, well, we touched on it before, mate. We're pretty keen to try and get over there next October, November. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you while we're over there. But mate, before we get out of here, like, what would like just one tip that you would give to builders that are listening, like to we've touched a lot on brand this episode. Like, what's one tip you would give builders that would, I don't know, get them in the right mindset to attract the right clients?
Oh, to attract the right clients. That's a good one. I think that the a tip that I've given a lot and that I would recommend would be, uh, think about what your minimum standards are as a builder and what things are important to you, and make sure that you don't negotiate on those. So, for instance, we talked about water and water being 80% of construction defect litigation. If your clients need to cut budget, don't cut any budget that has anything to do with water management, right? Because you're the expert on that and you're watching out for them by being an expert in that. So if budget needs to be cut, it should have nothing to do with water management. It should also have nothing to do with air management, because we need watertight houses and we need airtight houses. So you, as an expert, as the builder, need to tell clients how to build it. And if they need to cut budget, it needs to be tile, it needs to be countertops, it needs to be cabinetry, the level of sheetrock finish, the amount of trim in the house, whatever. But you should never touch the bones of the house and the systems, the air management system, the water management system. Those should be your minimums on every build. And if you do that, ultimately you're taking care of yourself, but you're taking care of your clients as well by building them the most watertight, airtight house that you know how to do.
Mate, that is a fantastic answer. Love it. Like, set your own standards, run your own race, and don't accept anything less.
For sure.
That's
For sure.
awesome. Well, yeah, like you said, Matt, really appreciate your time. Don't have to go through where to find you. Like, anyone listening's going to know where to find Matt Risinger, that's for sure. The number one builder in the
The
world.
buildshow.com. Duane, tell them about the buildshow.com. That's the best place. That's the easiest website. Actually, I have
All
a
right.
quick funny story on that real quick. You got one more
Yeah.
minute?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, go
You
for
know,
it.
we started buildshownetwork.com, and we spent all this time trying to find the right name and the right URL. And we started that, and about a year later, I got a text message from some unknown number. Hey, do you want to buy the URL thebuildshow.com? And I wanted to play it cool because I didn't know like who this person was, and I thought it'd be like multiple thousands of dollars to buy this website. And I was like, yeah, I might be interested in buying the buildshow.com website from you, you know? And they're like, all right, 750 bucks. I'll send you a link. And I was like, what? Like, really? Is this a scam? Like, are you really going to sell me the buildshow.com? And this is only like a year or so ago, right? I'd already spent
Yeah.
all this time on Build Show Network and branding, but the buildshow.com, I was like, this is awesome. So literally I bought that website from somebody's text message for 750 bucks. I mean, I probably would have paid 10 or $20,000 or more for it, but yet they text me out of the blue. I don't even know who they were. And yet we
That's
got it.
awesome.
We got it. Sure enough, thebuildshow.com, 750 bucks. Wasn't that awesome?
Mate, that's incredible. Well done. But like I said, mate, if you ever want a Aussie to jump on and be part of that show, I'd definitely put my hand up. But mate, appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. You got lots going on, and I think you've added a lot of value and you've dropped a lot of bombs today. So yeah, can't wait to possibly maybe catch up with you one day in person. Be absolutely awesome. So thanks for your time.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Duane. Really appreciate it, brother.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelikebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Duayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.